Hello, my lovelies. Well, here I am again with Cookie, my special guest. Cookie, hello, Mrs. Magpie, my lovely, gorgeous moderator, Mrs. Magpie. Here for a laugh, Bobby B. Hey, Bobby B. I'm trying to think up a good question for him, but I keep on going back to job. It's the way it's asked, Bobby. It's not,
Mm.
you know, if it's something controversial, I say people can ask it, but the way they ask it or the reason they ask it, if someone's being abusive or just trying to be, nasty about it. I mean, I had one and I've blocked it, Dancing Queen, and I caught her out going on to another live saying, oh, I love winding Anne up and all this. Well, that's just nastiness. That's not a nice person. And I think she wants to concentrate more on getting a professional tan instead of looking like an Oompa Loompa uh, on a Avi, shall I say. But anyway, meow. Meow. But hiya, Kelsey. And there's the link for Cookie. I'd strongly advise you because Cookie's got really good lives planned, haven't you, Cookie?
I've been on there, Yard Stream. I've been there looking at how to stream things and put more content on the page with us so I can talk about it and stuff on the screen. Sorry. So I'm looking forward to it now. So
See, the thing is with StreamYard is it's good, if you don't want to go into all the hassle, but when people who can use OBS to do it, my God, you can, when you learn OBS, but it's difficult, you can go to a completely another level. I mean, the things you can do with OBS are absolutely amazing, but it's hard going. You have to train for OBS, but StreamYard is really good in that it's more or less ready made and doesn't take much to get into it and start using it. But
no.
it's restricted. You have to, some things you have to pay for. You only get so many hours a month free, and there's
Mm.
certain things you can and can't do unless you pay for it. So, but if anyone just wants a straightforward one, StreamYard's really good
Mhm.
for it. Very, very good for it. So anyway, what have you been doing today, Cookie?
Well, like I say, I've just been learning about StreamYard. I mean, watched a couple of tutorials about it, looked at some content, done a
Mm.
test videos, and the work looked kind of good, So I think I'll be doing a few of them, getting on with that.
Yeah, that's exciting. But anyway, so anyone wants to jump on or ask anything, and I say, as long as you're polite and don't say anything to wind someone up or be insulting, fine. Because don't forget, it's only one quick click on the mouse, and if someone's being abusive, you're blocked. So, did I not
All
cook me?
much.
So anyway, what should we talk about first? You wanted to. We were talking earlier today, when we, and you wanted to start talking about truthfulness and people that aren't truthful. So just go over what you were saying, Cookie.
No, but it's like as a criminal, right? As a former criminal, right? I used to tell a lot of lies, and I think, as it becomes part of a behavior and part of a coping mechanism that helps you get out of things dead easily by telling lies and stuff like that. And I think owning that sort of behavior, telling lies, you know, uh, is something that is really hard to do when you've got loads of, especially on YouTube, because I see a lot of lies on YouTube and I see people getting caught out, but
Mm.
they're only making up lies to try and defend ourselves from whatever is coming their way, the insults that are coming their way and stuff and that. And I wanted to point out that when it comes to lying, I reckon that everybody tells lies. That every single person tells lies every day, at
You
least
have to, yeah.
half a dozen times.
There's a
So,
thing, Cookie. that is, I always say, right, if you didn't tell lies, I mean, there's levels of lying, let's put it this way. There's destructive lies, and there's lies that are just actually there for a good reason to stop things kicking off. But if you're if you let your your mouth run and spoke the truth all the time, like Liar Liar, that comedy, which is true, if you had spoke the truth, you'd be causing offense to people, and that's it, unhinged and saying things as you think they are what people say. I'm just being honest. Like, no, there's a difference between being honest and just being rude, because you usually find they don't like it back. Well, that's these channels where everyone's now going around threatening each other and calling each other names. That's people who start mouthing off. But so sometimes lying, you have to lie. You can't say what you think all the time, because it's not good for society, and it's also not good for your face, because you'd end up looking like a prize boxer, a very bad prize boxer, if you did that. So I just thought I'd say that, Cookie, but carry on, go on.
Aye, but it's like when you're going on it, how you build up to become delusional and to excuse your bad behavior, right, is through lying to yourself, right, and then lying to the outside world. Because first you've got to lie to yourself to convince yourself that what you're doing and whatever you're planning on doing is justified.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I see it all the time. You know, I just see it all the time, and I mean, and it's especially on YouTube, and it fries me head, because trying to distinguish between what's the truth and what's not. And man, you've seen all the things you've got to follow, you know, just to try and figure out in between all these insults who's telling the truth and who's really getting abused, John, who's really getting bullied there, and all that sort of thing, you know. And it's mind-blogging to me, like it really is.
Just wait a minute, Finn. I don't know who you are, but it looks like you've got Bobby. What's that fella's name? Smith. Bob Smith. It looks like you've got his video running, so I'm not letting you on unless I see who you are, because I don't know who you are, mate. There's someone trying to get on, and he's playing a video of it. It looks like Bob Smith to me. He's playing a video of, and that's suspicious. That. So,
I mean, think about it, right? The lies that I see regularly on YouTube, right? I mean, can you imagine? Oh, I mean, on a daily basis, I see it, right? Can you imagine all that negative energy, right? You have to put in to maintain it.
Yeah, that's it. Because this is another thing as well, and it's a very true. I remember my mum used to always have this saying: "Liars need long memories," and they do, because you'll be found out. You'll definitely be found out lying, because you slip up, and you see it happening on YouTube all the time. I've caught people out. They'll say something, and you think, wait a minute. Now, if I remember rightly, you said something completely different, or they'll slip up, and of course, that will happen, because they have to. Once you maintain a lie, you've got to keep it going. But there's levels, as I said before. There's levels of lying. There's lying that's destructive, and there's lying that I say is just there not to cause, you know, just not to cause harm to anyone and distress and alarm. You know, if you get what you think about that.
What about lying to defend yourself in a situation?
Lying to what?
To defend yourself in a situation.
How do you mean?
Like you're being attacked, right? So you make up a lie to attack them back.
If they're lying about you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what's happening at the moment, isn't it, on YouTube? People are sort of making up lies about each other to get at each other. So it's a, but all that it does, it feeds into the, how can it keeps it burning and going alive. So it's usually the one that's truthful will be the one that will win out in the end. Usually, not always, but usually that's the case. Because people can, and this is another thing I've always said. That's why I say stop. People shouldn't explain themselves, or keep on apologizing to people who call them and all that. Some people want to think bad of you. Some people want to think the worst of you. They'll never think anything good of you. So you could give them all the evidence. That's what I said about the Decahegi situation. No matter what, there's people that if he did bring out, let's say that he proved everything he was saying. Now, by the way, just let this get right. I'm not defending Decahegi. I think there's serious question marks there. But what I'm saying is, he could put it all out there, prove everything solid, and yet he'll still get people who will challenge them and accuse. So you have to sort of say it once and say forget it after that.
Well, that's right, because they're just on your case, because they just want you to keep explaining yourself to wear you down, isn't it?
Yeah.
To wear you down and make you feel that, like, I mean, like, see it, because like I've behaved badly, right? And I've had to own embarrassing things about myself and stuff, right? Now that I've owned all that stuff and that, you know, I didn't mind talking about it and what have you now. But if somebody's having a go at us and asking us why you got to own your stuff, you got to keep apologizing for me, well, wanting us to own me stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You know, the mental effect that I have on me keep going back to that, to having to own it every single time and talk about it. I mean, and just on the basis of some troll on YouTube who hasn't got a name, right? Who hasn't got a face, and whose opinion, well, their opinions don't really matter, do they?
No.
Unless you've got a face in a proper name, then I think you've got a valid opinion, you know, or an opinion worth listening to. But it's all faceless. It is. It really is. I mean, the names.
Here's what it is an example. Positive vibes, right? This one goes on some of the most hateful, I mean, just pure, vile hate lives going. And you see them in the live chat. And that's what I mean. Yeah, positive vibes. I've always kept myself quiet on this one. Pops in now and again. But positive vibes, I'm not a fan of yours, I can assure you.
I like positive. I like it because I have seen his name in the chat, because I do go in the chat sometimes. You know?
But the thing is, it's where he is or she. I've got a feeling it's a she. It's some of the most horrible, and we'll sit there. And this is what I've said, Cookie, before, and I'll say it again. I'm sorry. Someone sitting here in the most horrible carrying on, cannot sit there and defend themselves by saying, oh, I didn't say anything, or I wasn't involved, and I was just there. I'm sorry, if you're there, you're just as guilty, because that's your entertainment. And that's what I say. That's why I say you can condemn someone for sitting in a situation where there's hate going on.
I always say something like me.
Yeah, that's it. If someone says something, fair enough. But what they do is they sit there and go, "Oh no, I wasn't doing anything." I had this out with Joe. What's his name? No, Slow Joe. Oh God, Joe Kidd.
All right.
I never said, I didn't say it. No, but you sat there and listened to it and had a big grin on your face and were giggling. That's what I mean. You can't say that you're not involved in it when you're carrying on like that. So that's the way I see it anyway. But we'll carry on with the talk anyway, Cookie. So, yeah, I was saying to you about destructive lives. You see, sometimes I say, here's another one that people do. They say, I was lying. I only lied to defend you, to keep you safe. Here's a one that I've always said gets me. Right, a doctor, a family member, the doctor knows this family member is not long for this world. And they tell the relatives, but don't tell the person themselves. I think that's horrendous. I think everyone has the right to know when they're going to go, or that they're going. I think everyone has the right to know that. Because you can prepare then to make your peace.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard of that. Oh, the doctor didn't say.
I've heard of that as well.
I think it's disgusting.
And it is a bit of a... because I can understand that there probably is a quality of life situation going on there. And
yeah.
So, aye. Because, like, it would seriously, if you're going to live comfortably for the next 6 months, and, you know, I'd rather not now. Tell you the truth, than worry about the next 6 months when I'm going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say, to me, when you say it's the way I look at it, I don't see it as being anything that's, you know, here we are, banned. Just getting all the little trolls in today.
No, well, there is a pros and cons to both sides, you know, because if you know, you can, if you know about it, you can talk to your loved ones, you can address whatever conflicts that have gone on in within your relationships and stuff, and
you've
got time to mend stuff if that's needed, and make things better before you can. But aye.
Here we are, this is it. Look. See what I mean? Point proven. So you're out of here, positive vibes. I don't want you following me, right? I don't have bigots following me, right? And you're going. Because you're a bigot and you're going. That's it. I won't put up with it. Because, you know, they want to do the bigotry. They want to do the hate speech. Go and do it. But you don't do it on my channel, because I have respect for other human beings, you know, that way. Which apparently, that would make me a good Christian. That would make me a good Christian, that would. I'd be a follower of Jesus. Because didn't Jesus say that all love and lies, that you're not supposed to go around hating on people and making them feel miserable or trying to get them to commit suicide? You know, by constantly bullying them and telling them what crap they are.
Aye.
Yeah, I should be a Christian, I should, and so should you. We'll become Christians, Cookie, because we actually do the Lord's work, not like these horrible, disgusting things that try to cause distress and alarm to people. But anyway.
Well, you know, conflict, I understand conflict, right, in lashing out.
Yeah.
Right? And seeing, you know, you see things on the spur of the moment with the anger or whatever, you know, and it's not very positive. But what do you do when afterwards? You know, how do you? You know, these situations are going on YouTube. That's what you're getting. You know, people lashing at each other, right? Or even people, right, exposing people for being a bad person. You know, or saying, well, he whatever's told lies, you know. But once they're being exposed, it's like carried on, you know, and people are not like given a chance. Of, why not? Well, okay, if you're exposed as a wife beater, you know, or you know, then you know, can I get the chance to talk about stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
With the person who's exposed us, or is it just that person's motive is to expose us? Because at the end of the day, right, no matter what behaviour, I didn't agree with sex offenders and stuff, but no matter what behaviour you've been exposed for on YouTube, you should be able to redeem yourself. And the
But again,
person who's exposing you should offer that redemption as well, isn't it? That
but
why he's
now
doing that in the first place, exposing each other.
what you're doing, Cookie, you're thinking that there's actually logic in these people that do things like that. There isn't. They're just knuckle dragging grunters. In other words, they're not constructive and never have been constructive members of society. Do you remember I'm talking about the child stuck in the adult body?
Mm-hmm. Man
And
child.
yeah, and women as well. There's a lot of women the same way. It's the old ways have gone. People were too busy years ago. Men and women were too busy years ago to get involved in rubbish like that because they had to go out and earn a living. If they didn't go out and earn a living, they were looked down upon as being a man that didn't work was considered less than scum. It really was, especially if he had children. He had to work. And mothers used to go out to work. People forget that. They think that it was all stay-at-home mothers. No, mothers had to bring up the children and go to work as well because they were poor times. So, but that was the way it was planned. But now it's like you've got adults who they don't have to go out to work because the state looks after them. And that's where the issue arises because then they become entitled. And I don't have to do this. This is going to change. We can see this coming with the way the world's going now and the economic crisis is going. I can tell you now, people will be told, get out to work. They will be, because I can see that coming. Some people genuinely need help, but it should only be if they're sick. And genuinely sick. I'm not talking about pulling the system. So that's why it happens. And they just start attacking. That's it. They've got too much time in their hands. I can't see how someone that's a parent can be on YouTube doing all that business. Why aren't they out looking for a job so the child can say, oh, I look up to you as my parent because you worked. Do you get what I'm saying? But they don't. And they're all, and when you examine them, their own lives and the way they carry on are disgusting.
Well, you see, some of the channels that I watched and some of the debates and some of the people getting exposed now, they're quite good at what they do, right? And they can, some of them can articulate themselves in a good way, And I just think there's so many other things out there that need them, that if you put your energies into them, that's wrong with I mean, because a lot of people who are getting talked about on YouTube, right? We all come from that same social background. You see, so instead of pointing the finger, let's look. Let's talk about the stuff that's affected with for generations, that's been unaddressed in our societies, right? And like drug addiction, stuff like that. Looking at how since the Tories have come into power, right, that drug addiction and people dying of drugs, right, are getting worse.
Yeah.
Right, because
no,
of
they'd rather have
Cookie, highlight stuff like that.
Cookie, let's jump in here, right? That's not what they're interested in. They're just interested in getting views, causing absolute havoc, causing people to get distressed. They pick also on mentally ill people who have mental health issues, right? And that's why I have no sympathy for certain people when Apollo goes for them or Hector goes for them, because what Apollo and Hector do and bounce on the act, because as many of their victims don't feel comfortable if speaking out because they're scared to speak out or challenge them. And that's what I mean, frightened to speak out. Where Apollo and Hector do that. Stand up for those people and give it back. And that's what I see. But that's the world they're creating. That's the YouTube they're creating. And it's just like, it's not that they're exposing anyone. They're just out to get... There's difference if someone wants to expose, let's say, a predator online. I can understand that when they definitely know it is. I can understand them doing it, going on and on like that. There's a reason for that. But not when they're just nitpicking at people because they just don't like them, even though that person has done nothing to them,
It's
But it's
like
just for
jumping on the
drama.
gossip all the time, man. It's like it is. It's like jumping on the gossip, and like I say, there are all. I mean, we could be talking about how we can hold our politicians to account. How how can we get them to take the problems? Or like, I mean, look what we're faced, man. I believe, right, because we let, right, I might sound wrong, right, but because we let a young lassie, right, get up and tell the world and tell we all that, global warming and this and that we're wrong and that we shouldn't be doing this and we shouldn't be doing that. And now we've got such a huge energy crisis where this winter, I mean, what, and our politicians have stood by and just let it happen.
Well,
there are issues like that, and it's loads of issues like that where these politicians are making decisions about right, that and we think that we're powerless when we're not,
yeah,
because we don't
Cookie,
talk about them.
Cookie, I keep on saying this, you're right. You're talking about people. Do you think it'd be surprising that they even know who's in power? They wouldn't even be able to name their own. All that they're interested in is that every 2 weeks or whenever it goes in, they're getting their benefits money. And I'm not hitting out of benefits people who are on benefits, but this is what you see on YouTube. They couldn't give a damn. They're not interested. They haven't got the intellect to talk about politics. That's the bare truth about it. For God's sake, they're running around screaming that the Christians, a lot of them, and they don't even know. Well, they don't even know what a Christian is. Let's put it that way. So they're not going to know what politics is. That's it. These are just nasty people on there, and you have to just say, get on with it, because eventually your channel's going, because the algorithm will catch up with you, and that's all that you can say.
I mean, because of what all social circumstances from where right, have been politicized in a way, right, that used against we and made money. The people they've actually politicians actually politicized what social circumstances and made hundreds of millions of pounds out of our misery and done nothing to help with apart from make the problem worse. I mean, that is a real moral issue, and that's just with drugs. With drugs, I mean, look what happens because of drugs. People get loads of horrible crimes happen to them.
Yeah.
Loads.
And why did they take drugs?
Exactly. Well, it's exactly. There's a lot of reasons why people take drugs. Each people are different, but it's to help to deal with this. Maybe the same emotions that we're getting from maybe.
Or maybe it's just what the peers do, so they follow suit.
It can be.
It can be.
That's not why I started taking drugs. I started taking drugs because it was fun. It was fun.
But did your friend?
I started taking drugs to cover up my feelings.
But did you? Well, Cookie, did you take drugs and no one else around you did?
No, other people took drugs around.
Did your friends take drugs?
Aye.
So it was your peer group. That's it. That's what I mean by peer group. You weren't singly doing it on your own. You were doing because you'll get. This is what I say when you talk about drugs. It's a huge spectrum. You can't. People take for different reasons, but it's become like, sadly, a social norm to take drugs, and it depends what kind of drugs. Because you could say a cigarette's a drug, couldn't you? I mean, let's be honest. So, alcohol's a drug, and alcohol, as someone rightly pointed out, really causes more damage and it's more lethal to the drinker and the public as what drugs can be, even worse. And so it's a complex
the
subject.
social deprivation that the legal with alcohol and the mismanagement of the situation over the decades is at its highest apparently right now. Never have we had more people dying and falling foul to alcohol abuse and drug abuse than at any time in our history.
Oh, we have.
I
Had
mean,
worse.
we're meant to be getting good at dealing with these issues. I mean, a great understanding. I mean, 2022, we're supposed to have a great sense of this. What's the psychology behind situations, and understanding of drug addiction and everything. And it's not happening.
Well, the thing is,
Because of our politicians. Sorry, Anne.
there has been times where it's been much worse. People forget about the 1800s, and give you a little history lesson here. The 1800s, early 1800s, and that's the reason why we have a modern police force now. Because in 1829 they had to create it. There were no police as such as we know them today or see them today. Though what they created back then is nothing like what we see, what they would have wanted. But oh my God, don't forget gin. Gin was absolutely destroying, especially London. People were in the streets. There was a big campaign. That's how the Dingo came. The Temperance Society was born. Mothers were just drunk on gin, and they'd sell the children for gin. That's how bad it was. So alcoholism is nothing new. It was worse back then. And
But
the
there's
social...
But we've still got women on the streets.
Yeah, but then what I'm saying,
on
Cookie,
alcohol, but they're on drugs now mostly.
but
A lot of them is on drugs.
yeah, but Cookie, what I'm saying to you is it's not worse than what it was back then. And also back then, don't forget, we were on the edge of a revolution. Everywhere was kicking off. France had had its revolution. America was having its civil wars. Everywhere was kicking off. This country was terrified, petrified that we were going to tip over into revolution. Because, and that's why the police were invented, because they couldn't chance sending the army in. Because you send the army in and the people were starting to revolt against the army. Now, the thing is, this is a golden rule. If an army attacks its own citizens, it's an act of civil war. So literally, the civilians can rise up and attack their armies then. That's what happened during Cromwell's time. You know, that's how that all happened. So there were worse times, but the difference between those times and then was people literally were just at the, how can I put it? They were just at the total limit, and it got turned round. Eventually, got turned round. But yeah, it was. You wouldn't want to go back to those days. You wouldn't want to go back to those days.
I understand what you're saying, Anne, but like, it's like the reason why I believe the problem is much worse now, right? Is because they've managed to monetize it and make money out of it, right? And the images when you go out on the streets and you see all the homeless, I gone in the town centre in Newcastle, and there's homeless all over the place.
Yeah,
all over the place.
Oh, that is.
I mean, it's getting worse. It really is getting worse, and it's all down to how the government had changed their drug policy to abstinence-based approach instead of a more manageable care approach towards people who are on drugs. You know, it's resulted in a lot of people dying, a lot of people dying, and like I say, the figures are in that more people have died in 2001 than anybody than before records started. You know, so and that's down to the Tory government, and it started under Cameron. From the moment they come into office, them Tories just done now but attack the poor and try to monetize monetize it as well. Earn money out of it. I just cannot believe that it's not being picked up on and people are not talking about it, you know. But I'm going to start talking about it and putting more on it, because it is part of the prison reform thing, you know, and why we end up in prison in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, but okay.
I mean, what's happening, right, Anne, right, is with the drug thing, right, is when they changed it to the abstinence-based approach, right, all these charities started to come in, right, and they were helping, and the workers on the ground are getting paid minimum wage, right, but the charities are getting per worker, is you're talking 35 quid to 40 quid an hour for these workers, and then they're paying them £9.50 an hour. Right, and then the work rate is increased. So I say they got 10 clients, right?
Yeah.
And soon as the government brought in these incentives to get people off the drugs, right, they've got 30, 40, 50 people on their books, and they happen to rush them through, get them clean, kick them straight out. Right, and people have been dying for over a decade now because of this approach, right? And they've spent hundreds of millions of pounds doing it, right, and paying the staff who've got the experience and stressed with all the clients, been paying them peanuts and taking the lion's wage of the money.
But let's run this by you, Cookie, right? I mean, it's fascinating what you're saying, but is there ever a poor drug addict or alcohol addict? How can they be poor if they can afford the gear?
They don't go out robbing. They create victims. It's a vicious cycle. They're in and out of prison. You know, they're dirt poor. They're dirt poor emotionally, mentally, you know, morally, they're dirt poor. Everything in their life is dirt poor. It is a complete circle of misery, right? And the government is supposed to help. I mean, they put it, right? They joined it. They put the drug treatment thing when they swapped it over. They put it under the NHS, so the NHS took responsibility for it, right? Which took the ring fence for the funding, run it. So it even put it up where up against funding for people who've got cancer, loads of other treatments within, you know, that morally won't stand up to, you know, the public have got an easy choice to make. No, will you treat the sick people, not the addicts, not the addicts. It's not morally right to treat them over them.
No, I know.
You know, and that's how the politicians twist it.
Used to get that, Cookie, about.
Terrible.
Used to get that about
Weaponize it.
About AIDS, right? No, when AIDS first came out, and they thought that it was only a gay disease. I remember people, how they treat that thing, but they they asked for it, you know, that way. I'm sorry, if you're paying in, right? People pay into National Service. If someone's got an addiction, they should get help for it, but and get them off it. But this is the problem. This is where I think it all goes awry, Cookie, and I've always said this because it's the person's got to really want the help for it to work. And I worked with the probation service, as you know, and tell you now, what did I say to you about giving up smoking? When the time is right, you'll do it. But don't kick yourself about and beat yourself up if you try to give up smoking and then you go back to smoking. It's the worst thing you can do. When the time's right, so the person has to be in that position. It's just like that. It will happen, and it's not always consciousness when they'll just say this is it and it will work. But we used to get people in, and that's I have total sympathy for people who are hooked onto drugs, especially hard drugs, because giving it up is a nightmare to watch. It's horrible. They don't go through a nice time at all. But where I used to say it was ridiculous was you used to get help to stop them going into prison. It was literally because the prisons are full. So these come up with this an excuse. Well, if we send them on this course, and it was a joke, because you get people who were trying, but you get people who were just playing the system. And the probation officer would go back, because I used to have to do all the court papers and all this, get them ready and go to the court. And I used to be reading it thinking, are you kidding me? The probation officer was saying, oh, yeah, they did slip up, but I think they should be given another chance. It was just this all the time. It was a pantomime where I used to say what they want to turn round and do. I said to say, if the person's on, let's say PIP or something like that, and on benefits for mental health, you've got to say, look, this is going to be linked to your benefits. So if you go on these courses, you'll get your sickness benefit, because someone that's hooked on drugs is sick. They need help. They need help. You can't get off it yourself. It's that easy. So, they need help. But it should be linked to the benefits. And I'm not saying cut the benefits. You can't do that. That will just cause disaster. But what you do is you say, well, look, you'll get the full amount as long as you're trying to give up. And that's it. And proving that you're trying to give up. But yeah, again,
that sounds like the right kind of incentive to give, to put out there.
Yeah, but I haven't said that, Cookie. I haven't said that. There'll be plenty who won't be able to do it. Not because they're bad people or they're playing the system. It's because they're just not, their personality, their mental health isn't at that stage where they can give up. So it's an awkward one. I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think there's an easy answer for all. And one size doesn't fit all when it comes to drug users. So I think it's.
I mean, because we're talking about some of the most these substances are the most highly addictive substance you can get known to mankind.
Yeah,
and not many people who take heroin and crack and that recover.
Yeah,
it's a small percentage that recover. Very, very, very small.
It's just see this Cookie Rice. If people, and I keep on saying this, if we had full employment, you get people that would cure a lot of society's ills, because people wouldn't be in the position where they could do it, because they'd be working. And of course, in the old days, you didn't get benefits, or if you did get them, they were starvation benefits. That's all you did get. It was literally the really basic necessities. And if someone's healthy but there's no job, or there are jobs, but the jobs, as you say, you're getting ripped off. It's slave labor, where it should be a proper job for a proper wage. And that's it. Why should people be working to make some fat cat even richer? It's wrong, and it's the jobs now. This technology.
We're like getting rich off taxpayers' money, because most of them are government contracts.
Yeah,
that's what it. We are. And that's taxpayers' money, and then it's disgusting.
Yeah,
it's absolute. It's not helping our society at all. Greedy capitalists. I love capitalism.
You love what?
I love capitalism. I just don't think it's got any social conscience at all.
It doesn't, but neither does, I keep on saying this, neither does socialism either have any social conscience. Been there, lived through them, Cookie. I'm old enough. You're not. Don't even say because you're not old enough to have lived through it. I remember the 70s, and I remember what socialism really was like. And that's how the door was open, wide open.
No, I never really...
You were a toddler.
I was 74. I was born, so it was more the 80s where I was like,
which was the boom period for this country when it started. Started the boom. See,
and now beforehand in the 70s and stuff, and there was bags of rubbish stacked high on the streets. What?
It was hell. I hear people going on, oh, I'm a socialist, young people, and all this. I say, just go back, and they won't believe it. I tell you now, there's a reason Margaret Thatcher got in, and I'm no fan of Margaret Thatcher. I'm a Scout, so I'm no fan of Margaret Thatcher, but there's a reason she got in, Cookie, and that's because you couldn't bet these unions. When people go on unions and all that, don't make me laugh. Fat cats, they still do it. The people who are at the head of the unions are squirreling away all the money for themselves, right? Back then, they had ultimate power. people couldn't get to work. There were no, I remember people really relied on public transport then. You couldn't bury your dead.
That's
Bodies
right.
were piling up. The rubbish, there were rats everywhere, maggots.
Ah,
The poor bin men. Now, then we have bin men. Let me
ah,
start on that one. Then we have bin men, not like these people put your bin out there and they don't touch the bin. Then you used to have these big burly men picking up the bin, maggots dragging on them, dropping on the net.
that's right.
And we
It
used
was
to give them, I remember this, we used to give them a Christmas box. Every Christmas, you'd give them a present and a drink of whiskey or whatever. By the end of that day, they'd be absolutely legless, a lot of them. But that's what it was like back then, and it was horrendous. And they had to do something about the unions. The
they did,
unions were
yes.
held; they were holding the country to ransom.
That's
And I
it.
tell you now, shall I tell you who were the ones that were dead against going back to women's suffrage? Right? You know, when you're talking about women's suffrage,
Mm-hmm.
do you know who the ones who reluctantly, very reluctant, agreed to give women the vote? A Labour government, and they said, let's hope society doesn't suffer too much as a result.
All right.
That's socialism for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, capitalism has its faults, but let's put this way, anyone that complains about capitalism, right, it has its booms and it has its busts, but socialism does as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, it
both
is,
sides of that.
absolutely. I mean, the supermarkets these days are fantastic compared to when the 70s, you know, even the shelves were one chocolate block with all the different varieties of food we've got and all that these days. It was totally different. And I think we didn't understand at times how lucky we are up to the point, you know, but the gap between the rich and the poor is getting huge. And I mean, we're starting to, I mean, we're going to be rolling the clock back to where we really can't afford to heat our houses anymore, where the food prices are going to be so high that we're not even going to be able to buy enough food as well.
Yeah. Aileen Reynolds put it perfectly. Aileen, Labour did nothing, or the unions. It was just another boys' club. Exactly. The unions were a boys' club. They were, and women weren't welcome there. I can tell you that was nothing. Or very rarely they were welcome. But you know, I think what it is as well is that we're going back to the 70s. This is what we're going back. You see it more. I can see it on the horizon now. That's why I say get ready for a shock. All these ones sitting there thinking that it's they're having a hoot, you know, getting paid. Their benefits, something's going to crack because this is what they're waiting for, the excuse. And that's why I always say people often don't have the rights taken away from them. They give them away because they give the governments an excuse to step in and take them away. Well, when you're talking about, you know, nowadays compared to the 70s, I can see it going back there because then we had couldn't get bread, people forget just how bad it was. It was like a third world country. Well, not as bad as that. God forgive me for saying that. That's out of order. I shouldn't say that. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't cookie. It wasn't. People weren't starving in the streets. They weren't. Right, as bad as it was. People were going hungry, yeah. But a third world country, you're talking about something else there. But what they did was you had families and they was really hungry. The parents were having to miss out on food. The electric was getting cut off. I remember the horror of children being burned to death because they were having to use candles. And that's why it changed that they couldn't turn off your electricity or gas if you had children at a certain age. Because then they could just come along, cut your gas off, cut your electric off. Oh, it was horrendous. And you couldn't get bread, you couldn't get sugar, you couldn't get milk, you couldn't get this, you couldn't get, and that was all down to the unions. But now I can see it, but the government are hiding it. They're covering it up better than it was in the 70s. But I can see it happening again, and we don't want to go back to those days. We really, really don't want to go. It was horrible, and it's child abuse as far as I'm concerned to do that to a child, to leave them in a situation where they're going hungry. And it's not the parents' fault. It's not the parents' fault. The parents are doing the best.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter, the best is just not good enough. It's not sufficient enough.
I will no longer is it going to be just the kids who've got alcoholic parents or drug addict parents or criminal parents, all gonna suffer in that kind of way,
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting. It really is. I mean, I can't believe we've got such a big energy crisis going on, and we've had a good 10 years to sort this out, man. We really
We've
have.
had decades look right. I've said this before, Cookie, right? Don't know why people are shocked about fuel prices and all that. It's a little planet we've got. It doesn't stretch. Its resources don't renew that quickly. It took millions of years for that oil to form. If you use it all up, it's going to give way. There's too many. We know this. The resources are gone.
We're going to start fracking and everything in this country now.
Look, they've got it. The thing is, we've got
It's
to the point.
It's all been passed and all that now. That's what's going to be happening. We're starting to address the energy things that we should have been addressing.
Yeah.
Or manipulated into, climate change and all this taxing on top of climate change and all that. I mean, nobody shooting about climate change, but the politicians know they're staying well away from it. This next new prime minister has just got, you're not going to be entertaining it at all.
America's talking about it now, but the problem is it's trying to dampen what's already happened. We know we're in it. So people keep on saying, "Oh, we're going towards an extinction." No, we're already in the stars. I forget what they call it. I don't. Oh God, there's a name for it. Let's see if I can find it. It's health something or the extinction. In other words, it's happening now. I know that they can do is try to make it softer than what it could be, or try to.
Well, they're saying that there's too many people on the planet. Well, our population is apparently actually decreasing, and that we need to have more kids.
Where is it decreasing?
Have more kids.
Where's it
because
decreasing?
Because there's a lot of old people alive.
Here we are.
20 years.
Just let's say tell you about this. The present extinction, which we're going through now. It's not we're heading towards it. We're in it.
We're in it.
The Holocene, I think that's how you pronounce it. HOLOCENE extinction. And I'll just give people a quick talk about that. A quick mention of it's the Holocene extinction is the dying out of species. And that's what we're going through now. In other words, that's the modern extinction that we're going through now. So in 100 years' time, they reckon it's scary. If I remember the quotes, was 80% of the animals on the planet now will be gone. But I can't get where you're saying we're decreasing in population because there's nearly 9 billion people on the planet, or there is 9 billion. So we can't see where. I think we need a bit of decrease.
Right, because we're not having enough babies. Right, and by the time, and we've got a lot of old people on the planet, right? So they're actually producing in China more nappies for old people than there are for young people, for kids, right? And they reckon China's going to have a serious population problem in the next 10, 20 years.
Oh yeah, they've said that for years. They're heading towards a disaster, China.
And that's where we're gonna see population numbers drop dramatically over the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And
because
this stuff about global, we're using too much and that. And I think it's just natural. This is a natural process that we're going through.
It's a result of mismanagement of the planet, that's it. But you can't blame one government because they all should have pulled together. But now they're going to realise, oh, wait a minute. But this is it. I mean, when it was that, who was it said it? Do you know, oh God, why can't I remember his name? You know that scientist, Stephen Hawkins? He said, and explained why, he said, if you want a species to go extinct very quickly, he said, make it intelligent. Because he said, what happens when you're intelligent? you can come out with medicines, you can come out with cures, so you can live longer. And this is the problem. We've got an aging society. Years ago, it was the fact that if you got past 45 as a man, you were lucky. The majority of babies died in childbirth, and a lot of mothers died in childbirth. Now that doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And so what's happening is the species is too successful for the planet. And that's where the trouble starts. And you say, well, you've got to do one thing. You've got to either get a reality check and let people who are going to pass away naturally pass away. I mean, I should be dead. There's lots
Well,
of people should be dead. I should have been dead when I was 13. So
but
have you ever had...
our ability to reproduce, right, is diminishing year after year after year. You know, and that's just biologically that. You know, and that's because of our gene pool. You know, so you know they're becoming more sterile people each year. More men are more sterile. They can't. You know, the
because nature will get you.
sperm's affected, and they think it's because of the environment and what we're drinking and all that sort of thing. But that's happening year after year. It's getting higher.
Well,
There's
thing
loads
is,
of factors that are coming in that are saying that we're heading for we're on a population decrease and we're heading for a big one as well.
but
So,
you know, have you ever heard of the Gaia system, the theory of the Gaia system?
I've heard of that. I'm just not familiar with it. I've heard the name.
The Gaia system is that the Earth itself is an organism. In other words, it controls itself. It controls its own ecosystem. So if anything looks like it's going to become vermin, and humans now at the moment are the lice on the Earth that's destroying everything and all that, it will come up with things. Now, whether it's not an intelligence as such, it's just that the ecosystem regulates. So it will say, right, you're causing too much trouble here, you're going. And that's why diseases come up. That's why this happens and all things happen. Now,
change.
One thing's going to happen is either people are just not going to be able to reproduce, and that will sort the problem, or it will hit us with an illness or a virus or whatever that medicine can't keep up with. And it will say, right, we're going to wipe out so many of you. And if we're lucky, it will keep some people alive so that they, like the Spanish flu, like the plague, to try and keep, because when you think of it, majority of, it wasn't it something ridiculous like 2/3 of the whole of Europe was wiped out by the Black Death. And they recovered from that quick enough, didn't they? Very quick. So that's the Gaia system. They sort of take the idea that the ecosystem, the Earth itself, will actually control it. So if it doesn't care whether we're intelligent or not, it'll say, "Go on, get lost." But that could be a result of us say we're affecting the biosystem so negatively that we're creating a situation where we can't survive anyway. Once the Amazon's gone, we're screwed.
Yes, I know.
We won't be able
to take an hour.
That's the lungs of the Earth, the Amazon. So,
I mean, even the way we farm, the way we're farmed has been wrong from day one. We should never cultivate the soil. You know, we're desert. Apparently we're desertizing. Every time we turn over our soil and leave it open to the sun and all brune and neat green on top of it, that's called desertization.
Yeah.
And the more we do that, the more we're destroying the soil that we're, even down to the way we farm has got to change. It's got to change. And
it's just
the technology's there. It is.
I'm just finding out how to spell. I can't remember how to spell. Let's see, Gaia System. I thought it was GAI. It's not. Let's see. I'll find it for you now. Getting all it. Do you know? I can't find. It's a goddess, isn't it? It's named after a goddess. Here we are. Wait a second. Here we are. Yeah, I just forgot the A at the end. It's spelled Gaia, and if you put in Gaia System, that will tell you about how they believe that the Earth. And more or less, I think what it is that you mess with the Earth, you're going to do something that's going to destroy it if you do it too much.
Well, because I mean, when your behaviour is affecting the other species on the planet, it affects the biosystem. It has a knock-on effect each right the way doing, to the point where the biosystem has just kind of do nothing else but respond in a way that that damages, carries on damage.
We can't. You can't see. We live. Do you know what I always remember as well? Wonderful thing in the War of the Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when that book was written, it's absolutely amazing the way it says in it. That the thing that we earn ain't our right to be on this planet. Of course, if anyone knows the book H.G. Wells, the War of the Worlds, it's the aliens come down trying to take over the Earth. But what destroys them is a simple virus.
Mm-hmm.
It kills them out, wipes them out. But at the end of the book, it says, for millions of years, every creature and every human on this planet earned our right to be here by getting used to these and immune and living with these viruses. And that's it. Mm-hmm. If you play by the rules, you'll be okay, or your species will survive. But if you start abusing it, that's it. It's like, well, it's more, I think you're getting rid of yourself really by setting up a situation where, but we're too successful. That's the problem with it. We're too successful as a species.
Yeah. We're motivated by greed. Our society is motivated by greed.
You see, in the past, people had to, death was a thing that was around everyone. And people, as say children, the mortality rate for newborns was horrific. They were lucky to get past the age of 2, most children. It was rare to see anyone very old, especially men. Men used to pop off before they were 45. So it's just that now what it is, as you say, you've got an aging population but you've also got babies coming along and they'll be getting old. Look, this is what is freaky, and this is how it has progressed so quickly, and people don't realize it's gone so quickly. I remember people someone said they had a great grandparent. That was like, oh wow, that was something novel. You've got your great grandparents alive. Oh wow, most people never knew the great grandparents because the great grandparents died before they were born. Now that's normal. People know the great, and you see them boasting, oh, I've got 25 or 90 grandkids. And it's like, oh, there we are, little locusts eating up more resources. Lovely, aren't you? Great 90 great grandchildren eating up all our resources, But
we need the young ones to look after when we get older. We pay the taxes so we can stay in one nursing homes.
God, what? But I tell you now, you can't rely on the young now. My God, no way. They're not going to be doing that.
Well, we need them to pay the taxes. That's the thing, you see.
Yeah,
so that when you get in a home, you're all right.
You're all right. Oh God, this is what I was saying to one of my neighbours the other day. They're into the fitness, no keeping fit, and I used to say, and watching what they eat and all this business. And I used to say to myself, what are you doing it for? So we can live healthy and long lives. Let's say what, so you can end up in a nursing home dribbling. I said, because that's what it is. I said, I'd rather just enjoy myself and go younger than what I would, watching everything I'm doing and all that. That's the way I look upon it. So,
Aye.
we've had a really good chat tonight, haven't we? And no one's come on. I'll put it out lastly. If anyone wants to come out for a few minutes, and it will only be a few minutes, please do. We had a few idiots trying to get on, but I got rid of them. But what's your plans coming up for the next few weeks on your channel, Cookie?
Well, I plan on using this yard stream a lot more and talk about more stuff about prison reform. So I'm going to be in me inside time. I'm going to be starting that weekly now because I don't have to mess about making the video and all that. I can just get it straight up on your yard stream and get it all done and on a live basically. And I'll be able to do them all live, and that's what I plan on doing. Just raising more awareness, what's going on in British prisons, stuff like that.
And make sure you do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because you know what you like. You do it, then you go quiet for a few weeks, don't you?
I get preoccupied. I have to deal with like life sometimes.
I know life steps in, doesn't it?
I didn't want it to. I think this is part. My mission sort of things. Part of me, part of me psyche and what I want to do. Just that. Sometimes I have to deal with some other things, and it takes us right off track.
Yeah, it does. But what we'll do is we'll meet up again. I'm thinking of doing one about I might do a quiz, try a quiz out, see how that goes. Because no one ever jumps on these lives.
Well, we should do whether prisoners should be allowed to vote.
Oh yeah. We will. Let's quickly talk about that one. Should prisoners be allowed to vote? I'm going to say, right, this is the standard response of some people. No, they shouldn't, because when they commit a crime against society, they don't have a right to make decisions in that society. How do you feel about that viewpoint?
Well, I can understand that viewpoint, but it's not very successful. It doesn't help us hold our politicians to account when it comes to prison reform. Just look at the state of our prison system and that we release dangerous prisoners every single day.
But you really want devil's advocacy, that, don't you, Cookie? Devil's advocate, I'm being here. So I'm just putting the opposite of you.
Oh,
now, do you really want criminals having a say and deciding who gets into Parliament? I can't believe I've just said that, because I think the biggest criminals going are in Parliament.
Well, yeah, I think that when it comes to, I think it'll make I think we've got to be able to show people that would teach prisoners and stuff and that they care about the community that they're part of. And one is allowing them the vote when they're in prison. Because if you're in prison and you see the crap that you have to deal with on a daily basis, right? And then you see these politicians on the telly that don't address the situation at all and actually just making it worse, then maybe these politicians will start taking into account what's going on in their prisons and try and do something about it so they can win that vote in that prison.
Do you remember when the fella that first came up with that and caused an absolutely poo-poo storm at the farm? Didn't he axe some poor old lady to death? And he was the one saying that his human rights were being violated.
I understand that. I do understand that, right? But I think it is a human right to be able to vote.
But this is what I'm saying,
and I don't think it doesn't stop you from being a human if you've committed a bad crime. You're still a human being.
But you violated another human being. I'm talking about people who have done crimes against people. We're not talking about financially, we're talking about
Mhm.
crimes against people. So if someone's done something against a person, they violate that person. Why should that individual's rights even matter?
Because it's still a human being.
Hmm.
Because you're dealing with a human being. That's why, and that's just the way it is. I mean, if a vote, if the way things stand at the moment, our politicians are just not held accountable at all for what goes on in British prisons. Right? Obviously the British public are just not responsible enough to hold them to account properly and get the situation sorted out.
Yeah.
The British public are so irresponsible. They just want to whip you to death and take everything away from you and just whatever. They anything that's terrible, do it to the prisoner because he's committed the crime. And the politicians are more or less the same. So that either side, they're just not responsible enough to sort it out. Whether I think the prisoners, given the vote, where it could have an effect on whether that Conservative or that Labour MP is going to win that vote for that area, right? If they don't start addressing the prison problem.
How do you think, though, how do you think it will go down with society as a whole, who are usually conservative with a small c? How do you think it will go down with the public or the taxpayers that prisons are getting all the attention when the
The
economy
prisons
is
won't
literally
get the
crashing?
attention. Just what you'll get is you'll get real reform in prison.
Will you?
Well, yeah, of course you will. If you can hold your politicians to account for the offending behaviour rates that's coming out of their prisons in their constituency, right?
Is there that many prisoners that can do that in there?
Well, look how many votes these days that they're winning by. They're winning by a few thousand, Some of them are only winning that. It's not that many thousand that they're winning by. And if you've got some in some counties, they've got 4 prisons in their county. That could be our 2,000 votes.
You see, the problem you have, Cookie Rice, is that it's not. It's, how can I put it? Two of the big things that the public love to hear: tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime.
Mhm.
Now, even though they're not, but they say this all the time. It would not be a popular move for, I don't think, any potential candidate for Parliament or for election to turn around and say, "Oh, guess what? We're going to love our prisoners." I just don't think that's
It's not.
priority.
It's not that, right? It's like, right, being tough on crime, right? I'll tell you what really, really, really is being tough on crime. Making sure that somebody is properly held accountable for their behaviour, right?
By giving them the vote.
By getting them to take responsibility for their behaviour. But right, you send someone to prison, right? And you send someone to prison for 5 years, right? And then under the present regime, right? Where it's all about punishment and it's just about taking you off the street and making you feel horrible for 5 years in prison, right? And then letting you back out. And then that person starts reoffending. He's just clearly not taking, he's just not, his behavior has not been addressed. And for any victim of crime, right, I think the most important thing, right, is that person who's committed the crime be held accountable for his behavior. And that means he address it. He stop behaving like that
Well,
and stop committing violence
do you know
or
what, Cookie?
crime.
I'll put another scenario to your eyes.
Right?
Why don't they just bloody behave themselves in the first place, like other people have to?
Well, that's it.
Why did they need schooling in how to behave themselves?
Well, because they need schooling. Because when I grew up, right? I grew up in an environment where I went to school every single day, right? But I left school and I couldn't read, right? I couldn't read. Now, my parents were young. They were young parents. Aye, they maybe should have been more active in getting us how to read and what have you and that. But I never had no opportunities at all growing up to try and better myself. My social circumstances took all them away. And I mean, there was hundreds and the amount of people, right, in my year at school, I would say about a half a dozen away, right, in my year have ended up in jail for life sentences. I would say in my class at school, I would say a good 80%, I would say 90% of the boys ended up in prison.
Just let's reply to Method here. Oh my God, it depends on your background. Method, I'm being devil's advocate here.
I know.
I'm coming out with what I think. What it is, Cookie's coming out with the pro-prisoner, let's put it this way, approach. I'm giving them all that I'm saying I think society in general will say. So don't take it that when I'm saying it, I actually believe this. I'm just putting them through the mill, acting as devil's advocate, trying to, like I do with anyone that say that they want to start campaigning. I'll put them through it just to see how good they are at doing it.
But that's what we've got to do. That's how we debate it.
That's how you debate it. But also, right, the thing about, you're saying that you couldn't read and you came out of school not reading. Well, I know plenty of people who are not very literate. They can't spell, they can't read. You get dyslexic people, and they've been a success. They didn't turn to crime.
No, they didn't.
That's what I mean. It's more or less.
There is a lot of people like that.
This is the problem. See, Cookie, there's also this I'm a victim scenario that people can see in, people who turn to crime, whatever. I'm a victim. Are they a victim? Because society will say, well, wait a minute, you've created victims, so should we have sympathy with you?
Well, I didn't see like myself as a victim, right? I see myself like that's just the way it was. I've lived with the consequences of my life, and there come a time in my life, right, where I should have taken responsibility for my own behaviour, and for my own path in life.
Yeah,
but I feel to do that. It can be because, and I can see it. Well, I never had the skills to be able to. I never had the relationship skills to form and maintain positive relationships around us. My social skills weren't developed enough to do that. There were a lot of, and it seems like it's just excuse or being the victim, but no. When you're a victim, it's like you feel hard done by. You feel like you want to lash out back towards, and it can be rightful resentfulness and because something's bad's been done to you. But there comes a point in life where you have to take responsibility for it and say, well, hang on a minute. There's times where I could have taken responsibility, but never.
What about the saying as well? And a lot of criminals say this, hardened criminals, and when they're found and banged up, and you used to hear them, fair cop gov and all this, and they'd say, do the crime, do the time. And actually, you'd hear them say, I used to hear them when they'd come into the police stations, they'd go, they'd say, I've been caught, I've done the crime, I'll do the time. And they couldn't be bothered with anyone saying, it was mine. They'd say, no, you did it. You're in here because you chose to be in here. What do you think of that viewpoint?
I didn't see out wrong with that viewpoint. Yeah, except, I mean, was it, it's an occupational hazard, as Norman Stanley Fletcher would say it in Porridge. The judge would say it to him. It is an occupational hazard. These things that, because it happens quite regularly, where disaster happens in your life, like you go into prison You know, and everything's taken away from you, and that happens quite regularly. But you just roll with the punches. You don't experience any positive change, emotional positive change in your life, really, when you live in that lifestyle. You know, it's all negative change that you experience. In, I suppose, when you're like from me, like to me, you accept it.
Kelsey's come up with one, and I'm gonna. Kelsey, you've given me a good one here. I can bite at this one really good. I can be a right bitch with this one. Right, you could see it as the society that creates the offenders through trauma, neglect, poverty, abuse, then rejects them and refuses them, but expects them to conform when they're released. Victim mentality. That's what the public will say. Victim mentality. They chose to do the crime. People go through trauma. People go through poverty. People go through neglect, and they don't turn to crime. That's a fact. That's a fact.
But if loads of choices have been taken away from you socially, do you really have a choice?
What choices have been taken away? Give us an example.
Well, my choice to take what part of what was taken away from me was I wasn't taught how to read and write.
No, that was you. You weren't paying attention. There's no reason.
No.
There's no reason. Don't give me that.
I was well behaved at primary school, and I was well behaved. I should have been. I had learning difficulties. I still have to this day, but that was a lot of my choices were taken away from us because my choice to be able to have a positive relationship, to maintain positive relationships, that was taken away from me. I had to figure all that out by myself, and I couldn't.
So how do you mean it was taken away from you, Cookie?
Well, my social circumstances, right? All the adults around us who were having relationships, how they deal with conflict, how they maintain their relationships. I learned a lot of that from how to do that from them.
Yeah.
That's what you do, don't you?
But how does that
learn? And then struggling with a lot of feelings when you're growing up and stuff and what have you. You've just got to deal with them, haven't you? You cannot share them. You cannot. How can I explain it? Kid growing up right now. So a tragedy happened to me when I was really young. Right, I was in the first year of senior school, in something bad happened where one of my friends ended up dying in front of us. Right, I had to deal with that by myself. I didn't have any I didn't have any support from anybody. I felt that I was done something wrong, and I had to live that. It was partially my fault, and I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong, and I've had to live with that because, and it's just a lot of things. Even how you socialize properly.
But the thing is, it still doesn't. Still doesn't answer the question, does it? Or settle the question, Cookie. That people go through that. People go through, and I'm not belittling what you went through, but or demean or say that's a lesser. But there's people. I remember speaking to some Somali lads who had come over, and honest to God, they'd just say matter of fact what they saw going on over there. And you'd be like, if that happened to anyone here, they'd be in therapy for the rest of their lives. Where they just literally were like, this happened, that happened.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, right, Anne, if I was brought up in Somalia, right, where I witness violence on a daily basis from the day I can really understand it, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna be like that. You know what I mean? It's like, how can I put it? It's all relative to the point where, how can I've lost me thought, yeah. I've lost me thought.
Well, we started off with going on about voting in prison, didn't we? Then we got the reason of why should we have people, committed crimes actually getting a vote and a say on the society that they've harmed. So that was one of the things. Then we got on to the reasons why people got into their, crime, and could they be held to, because I said victim, didn't I? Oh, crime victim, but I'll give you another pointed stick as well and jab you with it to see what you think of this one. Maybe you just enjoyed what you were doing when you were committing the crimes. Like, going to cinema, like
Well, of
it was your
course.
entertainment.
I mean, of course. I mean, living life without consequences is fantastic. It's a fantastic feeling.
But there are consequences you learned in the end, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
But if we were
And it's
all,
like,
if we were all nice, but this is what I think some people would think, if we were all nice. This is turned around really nicely to back to the beginning. If we were all nice to prisoners and gave them the vote and all this, and we're trying to work out why they were doing all the crimes they're doing, maybe the fact is that that's taken the punishment angle out of it. See what some people could think.
Well, I think that we can still do where people going to prison are still being punished, but but in such a way that psychologically challenges them, right? That they have no choice but to change.
Maybe it's a lot of them just don't care. Inside, they
That's
don't
because I
care.
just need that delusion smashed.
See, it's not people when you're talking about. I bet people, I say, when I was with the police, most horrible. Some people are just horrible, and you'll never get them to see it because they're so. Look, you get people who are bad because they're just bad. You get people who are good because they're good. You get people in between. You just get bad people, and no matter what you gave them, what help you gave them or anything like this, they'd still be bad people. End of story. That's what happens. That's the way society rolls, doesn't it? You can't make everyone see an error if they don't see the committing an error.
Oh, there's no silver bullet. Like there's definitely no silver bullet to just wipe it out. But no, I think that everybody, well, most people have got like a goodness part of them, and I think
some don't cook it.
People don't really choose to reevaluate that behavior in a really meaningful way until something really bad's happened in their life.
Look, we've got two people, right, and which is horrifying. One of them was asking to get out of prison. He was given a 10-year sentence. The child lost his legs as a baby because he was abused that much. He got sepsis and everything. Now, when you've got someone like that, two parents that did that to child, and you just have to look at the pictures. I'm sorry, you have to look at the pictures and think, oh God, you could just see. If I saw him walking down the road, I'd cross over the woods just by the look on him. But I mean, how are you going to put sense into someone like that? Two horrors like that. You're not going to get them a conscience. You get people who do the most horrendous things. They couldn't care less.
Well, I find that disgusting. I mean, I've met people, right, in prison that disgust us. I've been on. I've met people who've actually had sex with dead bodies. I mean, he was on the ones in Scrubs, but oh my God, there was a lot of and it to deal with people like that is very, very difficult. But to try and what we've got to hold on to is that we've got to try. I mean, having people part of people are going to exist like that in our society, right? Then somehow, right, we've got to make sure they're safe to be part of it.
But why? Why
Because
is
they're
it
humans.
society? Why is it
Because
society
they're
that
humans,
tax?
and it's all part
Yeah,
part of
they're
the
humans, but they
condition.
don't care about other humans. I've just said they left a child with no legs now.
Well,
You
what
know,
about
this
that?
is what I'm saying. But let me
Right,
finish
that's the
this.
whole.
Yeah,
So
but
there's a
uh,
bloke called
wait a minute,
Richard.
Cookie. Let me
Um,
finish this point, right? This is what I'm saying to you, right? You've got to look at the way, the reality, the way people will see you who haven't committed crimes or anything like this.
mhm,
So, to hear someone that's committed crimes that's got them put in prison, especially when it's against other people, right? And
mhm,
don't forget, something like people say property doesn't matter, like stealing a car or nothing. That can be devastating for
mhm,
someone. Absolutely, that's worked hard to get that car, whatever. That can
mhm.
be devastating.
That's right.
What do you think it feels like to them to hear someone saying that's done those things? But I'm a human, I have my human rights. When that person didn't give a damn about them being human and their emotions, that's what I'm saying to you. That's what you've got to address.
Yes, but and what I'm saying is that for the victim, what the victim, I believe, would seek is to hold that person accountable fully for his behaviour, and
Yeah.
part of that is making him take responsibility for his actions, so that he never does stuff like that again. But however, you're talking about people who don't feel sorry for what they've done and never, ever, ever will be. And that, I mean, there's this person who
But
comes to mind who he's a hitman locked up in America and killed loads of people. And he sat with the top criminal psychologist. And this man didn't feel anything naturally. You know, it was a mental condition for him.
but what I'm saying that you're talking about when you're talking about prisons, we're talking about prisons and prisoners in it. We're not talking about specific people now. Because
Mhm.
you can say, oh, this person, that person, that person, but we're talking about
No,
the folks. But wait a minute, let's finish this one. The thing is about it, Cookie, is that it's still the situation that you're asking the public, the taxpayer, those that do pay tax, and we see what's going. Businesses are going under. A lot of these taxpayers are business owners, and they're struggling to keep the business going. Why should they make a priority? And they most probably, a lot of them have been victims of crime themselves. People will
mhm.
be. Why should they be making a priority for prisoners when the tax money could be going to other things? That's what the other side of the coin that needs addressing. It's like, why are prisoners this special
Because it
little?
truly is a moral issue.
It's a very moral issue.
It
Very
truly
moral.
is a moral issue, because when you're emotionally involved in these situations, it's hard.
Yeah. See,
It's
you're
very
from
hard.
that situation, but the public will have, and actually a lot of criminals will agree with the public's view. Bah, get on with it. They'll turn around, like I said before, do the time, do the crime, do the
Well, of
crime, do the
course,
time, and
that's
that's what
always
they'll
got
say.
to be part of it.
And they'll tell you to go and stick your votes where the sun don't shine. That's what a lot of hardened criminals will say, because they don't like the sympathy thing. Like, oh, they say, just do it, get it over and done with, get out. And that's how you deal with it. It's like the old Italian way. I mean, I've got Italian ancestors and relations,
But isn't
and
that? But the
their
moral
idea
issue.
is just get on with it, stop moaning,
But
get on
that's
with it.
like immoral, because what's happening is, because we've got that attitude, we are releasing dangerous prisoners every single day that are going on to create these more victims, who are then turning around and saying,
Yeah.
we want to punish them and want to drive them to the ground. You know, when I think that what victims really want is so that if someone goes to prison and when they get out of prison,
Lock them up
they
for
take
good and
responsibility.
don't let them out, and then they won't be able to do that. Lock them
Well,
up. Make it
but
worse. That's what the Pope would say. Make it worse. Make it a punishment. Make it a punishment for these people.
yeah, but
Then guess what? I mean, we all know, Cookie, the truth. You're all sitting there with your Game Boys, your 57-inch screens, wide screens, your DVDs, you get taken out on days out, to the cinema, to the bowling park, and all this. The public knows what's going on, so why should they? Why should they? And before anyone kicks off in the chat, I'm being sarcastic here. I'm being sarcastic.
It is hard for the public because you know how the newspapers react. I mean, you're going to give prisoners a pay rise, and God, hey,
Yeah.
you're going to give them £11.50 a week instead
Disgusting. It's
of
scandalous.
£10 a week.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I'm surprised you got £10 a week. You should be doing it for free and actually on your knees begging the public, saying, I give this money to you all. I give this money to you all. But yeah, so what I'll do is sort mine up. It's fascinating, but we'll have this. But for people who know, I'm just acting devil's advocate, because I think that gets, because I always say the most boring thing you can do is have someone agreeing with everything you say. Because it's patting each other on the back. Mm-hmm. So anyway, what's this? But Cookie, it's well known a lot of them fool the system, and they are oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Definitely know what you're talking about there. But what we'll do, Cookie, we'll get onto this subject again. It'll be absolutely fascinating to get onto it, because we could go on for hours on this, couldn't we? And hopefully people start calling in, because they're not at the moment. They like staying in the chat. But I'll close it down now, and I'll say to Cookie, thank you yet again. And anyway, I'll put me pretty Avi on. Let's see, where am I? Here we are. So thank you to everyone from joining in, and thank you again, Cookie. And until next time, because we'll have to get these prison reform things up and running again. But for those again who thought that I was being serious in what I was saying, I was just giving the alternative view to what Cookie was saying. So night to everyone, and thank you, Mrs. Magpie. Thank you, darling. So night.